Hi, I'm at MagicFest Austin.
I know a lot of the Magic artists, a lot of us are friends, and so it's kind of just a healthy competition and actually staying off of each other's turf a little bit.
I really like the idea of just kind of taking like regular horror tropes and then just kind of screwing around with them and everything.
Legends are really old.
Legends are really old. You heard it from Ken first. When you get contracted for a certain piece of work, are you getting a contract for multiple items or is it piece by piece?
Usually it's per set, and the sets are oftentimes broken in half, so kind of a first wave, second wave, especially for the larger sets. And in each wave, they usually will commission 1 to 5 or however many the artist is going to get.
It's usually one at a time. You tell them exactly how many pieces you're willing to take per blast. You have like 4 blasts, I think, per set and stuff. So really ambitious people, they're going to take like, I think the worst I heard was like 4 cards a set. That sounds just terrible. They give you 6 weeks for each card and stuff. So if you're trying to do like a painting of each of them, if you take 4, that's crazy. Yeah, it's just a bad idea.
Sometimes you're doing a cycle like the avatars, where you're doing 5 things that sort of fit together, that fit in the set. Sometimes you just do something really generic, just make it fit in the set. And sometimes you get like story elements, like Unmask was a story element. It was sort of added. And then you need to do something that fits that and tells the story. So you get a variety.
Well, in my case, I haven't done any work for Wizards for a while. All the work I did was pretty early on. Arabian Nights, Ice Age, and a couple cards after that. So methods have changed somewhat since then. In the very beginning, they only had a small scanner, so the artwork by necessity had to be relatively small. And really, common sense as an illustrator tells you usually don't work more than maybe 3 or 4 times up from the size it's going to be printed. Nowadays there's more considerations. They have a lot better setup. They can hire anyone they want. They have more money, Wizards does. And a lot of the artists work digitally, so they work pretty large. They can be used for banners and things like that. So it's a lot different than it used to be back then.
With some of the cards, it's just kind of do this, go on your merry way. With like Regal Caracal, they gave me the entire Amonkhet style guide. And so I kind of get to go in there and see, they have different ideas for like the colors of certain things. What the interiors are going to be kind of like a royal blue type of stuff like that. So where the background matters a lot more, they gave me a lot more of the information on it. With other cards like all the unstable set stuff, it was pretty much just here's an animal, draw the animal, do it in a natural environment. Yep. Don't do anything like too wacky with it. With something like I did Success, which is the rabbit with the lobster claws. They gave me like, here's all the stuff that happens in the background. You can choose any of these sorts of backgrounds. We wanted to buy this like big barn thing that was central to the theme and everything like that. So for certain cards, they'll give you a lot more backstory on it. For other cards, it's just, here, just do this. There you go. Go nuts.
Now they have a lot more details to give the artist and more steps, like sketches, color, roughs, etc. Cool. Back then, for a lot of the reasons I mentioned, they would just give you the name of the card and you just went with it. So most of the stuff I did, that's pretty much all I had to do.
You're given a card name that usually changes by the time it's released. You're given the color of the card and a rough description of what they'd like to see. Most of the worlds, they're pretty heavily concepted ahead of time for world cohesion, and so there's a style guide that goes out as well. And there might be some references, like make sure your temple looks like such and such on page 400 or whatever, just to maintain some consistency between the artists. But that's usually all we get. We don't get any rules typically, and usually the lore is written later. The flavor text is written later.
Yeah. Some very basic outline type of stuff.
Yeah, and actually sometimes the flavor text is, kind of reflects sometimes when the art's, in the card, that helps them to actually write flavor text sometimes.
Is there any particular color set, any type of thing that you find particular inspiration from when you go to draw? Is there anything that you find is easier to do than some other pieces?
I usually get kind of pigeonholed into black. I do, but I also like doing angels, and they're pretty much white. So
yeah, there's some good black angels though.
But I've done a black-white angel.
I think most of the stuff I did in Arabian Nights was green related. And I like to do organic stuff, so I guess for that reason, maybe green would be good. I don't particularly really get into like hard science fiction, for example, and architecture so much. So I like more organic forms. So maybe green.
Yeah, I think over time I've tended, and I think the art directors have noticed as well, I tend more towards white with some green and blue sprinkled in. Kind of the red aggro stuff and kind of the really dark black stuff. Like I can do a little bit of all of it, but really I lean on the other side more.
Do you ever see another artist, another piece that an artist has done, and use some of that and incorporate it into your own work? Or do you kind of just look at what they're doing, feel mildly jealous that they're awesome too, and then just continue your own way?
A little both. Yeah, sometimes, especially like at the lighting, because a lot of my lighting tends to be pretty generic. I'll look at some and go, no, it's freaking amazing. And I try to incorporate some of the elements into it.
If you look too much at it, it's easy to start getting too influenced by it. Right. And, for instance, I love, a lot of the Magic artists, but, the Jesper Racing, for instance, he has this wonderful kind of drawing sense. And if I look too much at his work, because he's really good, you're tempted to want to start drawing a little bit like him, but that's his thing. So, I know a lot of the Magic artists, a lot of us are friends, and so it's kind of just a healthy competition and actually staying off of each other's turf a little bit.
I really like Jesper Essing's work. Yeah. No, he's probably my favorite Magic artist. I try to incorporate his kind of like playfulness into my own work. It's definitely like a goal that I'm still working towards. But he does a great job with like color and lighting. It's just every time.
God, there's just so many. And so many have like so many different skills. Like Chris Ron is just an awesome oil painter, and I just love the way he kind of puts things together. And then you watch like Howard Lyon videos, and he's just slapping it together out of nothing. I don't know, but it's like 1 second there's nothing. There's some pencil lines, and the next second it's like that's done and it's amazing. Yeah. Yes, just stop it, Howard.
Do you have a particular piece that you've done that you're most proud of?
A lot of people ask me that, and I don't have a really truthful answer. I have answers that I give just so I can give an answer, but when I look back, most of that stuff, like most of us older artists, we sort of cringe at that work because we've obviously gotten a lot better.
100%.
And some of the artists were relatively new to even art way back then. But having said all that, I usually tell people something like Stone Throwing Devils, because that one had sort of a combination of a cartoony goofiness and realism in the painting style. So that was sort of fun to do for that reason.
Just in terms of my career, I think one thing that's been very interesting with Magic, because I started really early on when the game was getting big, but you didn't think it was necessarily going to be this big, and that it was going to last this many years. And that is, the lesson learned there is just to, not overlook small companies, that, you just never know who's going to break out and become massive. It was easy. The first time I ran across Magic, about a year before I started working with them, and they had a table at a convention that I was at, but they were just starting out. They weren't really big yet. And I remember just thinking, I don't know, this kind of like small independent publisher, I kind of fly by night. Are they going to stiff me if I work with them and not pay me? All this stuff. I actually walked right by their table. And I had my portfolio with me, so I felt really stupid later. Within a couple of months, and the game blew up. Thankfully I got a second chance, to get back in the game pretty quick. That was a big lesson learned.
Do you play Magic?
No. I feel really stupid that I don't. But when I started, I had no clue what Magic was because number one, it was really new.
Very new.
And there weren't really a ton of even games around at that point. Dungeons and Dragons, a few other type of things like that. Back in the Stone Age, I was going at it more from the angle of it's another commercial illustration job.
So why don't you give yourself a quick plug and what you got going on in your life right now?
Hi, I'm at MagicFest Austin. And I'll be at many other events and things in the future. I'll get my calendar updated soon. arcadepost.net. There you go. And all my social media links are on there.
I'm doing a comic on Patreon all the time now. It comes out every Monday. They can find a link to that on my Twitter, which is at Andrea Radeck. And for the most part, I'm just doing a lot of shows this year and a lot of self illustrations. I'm having fun just kind of taking a little bit of a break from some commercial work and just kind of painting for myself, which is super nice. So,
being a more of a mainstream illustrator, I have stuff all over the map. I do portraits for people, pet portraits for people. I do logos, design, all kinds of stuff.
You run the gambit, Ken.
I've had so many weird jobs in my life, you wouldn't believe it.
I would believe it. And thank you so much for joining us, man. This has been nerdjam.net. You can catch us on Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, the whole deal. Thanks for joining us, man. I appreciate it.